With the sun still high and the last of afternoon bells ringing over Ponyville's elementary school, cheering foals of all shapes and sizes began to pour out into the snow-covered world. And there was plenty to cheer about, because today was the day before Heartswarming Eve. Some foals galloped out of the small schoolhouse's front door. Others rushed to the playground with friends through the side door. A tiny constellation of Pegasi flapped their way out of open windows, occasionally bumping into one another on unsure wings. Back inside the classroom, a small smattering of ponies remained, either not as eager as their already departed counterparts, or they were otherwise distracted. One such pony was Dinky Doo, the smallest unicorn in Miss Cheerilee's class. Small though she was, she wore a face of immense concentration, total and absolute, as she stared at her school bag hanging by its lonesome on its hook on the wall. A thin, pale yellow aura, easily dismissible as a trick of the eye, encased her bag, and slowly, methodically, it eased itself into the air. Dinky stared at it, unblinking, willing it with all of her might to race to her and strap itself to her back, as she'd seen other unicorns in her class do, while talking with her friends and walking somewhere, and not concentrating as hard as she was. The aura around the bag wavered, and she banished the distracting thoughts from her mind, focusing only on the bag. It was the whole world to her right now, and it had only moved about a foot. And then the upturned flip on Fry's big, dumb, stupid red mane brushed against the bottom of her bag as he ran under it, and her world fell to the floor with a suspicious crunch. "Fry!" she shouted with a pounding of little hooves on her desk. "Sorry, Dinky. Happy Heartswarming!" he shouted half-heartedly over his shoulder as he waddled his Hayburger cutie mark out of the door. The little filly hopped out of her seat and trotted over to her bag and scooped it up with a huff. Turning it over in her hooves, she opened the top flap and inspected the contents within. With a frown, she pulled out a crinkled-up paper bag and unfurled its opening to look inside. "Pony feathers," she thought as she hoofed through the broken innards. "Everything okay there, Dink-Donk?" asked an annoying voice to her right. "I'm fine, Diamond Tiara," she said, jamming one bag back into another. "But the pretzels that I had for snack are all broken also," she said, still rummaging through her school bag. "I left my house key at home." "Oh, boo-hoo, your pretzels broke. That's no reason to sit on the floor and block my way out, is it?" demanded Diamond Tiara with a flick of her mane and a look on her face that said, "No, it's really not." Dinky slung her old school bag over her shoulder and strapped it across her belly, all while giving Diamond Tiara a dirty look. "Why you gotta be so mean?" "I'm not mean," the taller, prettier Earth Pony said as she shoved her way past Dinky. "I'm tough. There's a difference. When you're done getting yourself together, Dink-Donk, come outside. I've got a holiday surprise for every pony." "A surprise?" asked Dinky. Diamond Tiara got to the door and spun in place with a flourish. In her sickly sweet sing-song voice, she called out to the other end of the classroom with a wave. "Happy Heartswarming, Miss Cheerilee." Dinky turned in place in time to see Miss Cheerilee offer Diamond Tiara a small but genuine smile and a wave. Then she turned her attention back to the Cutie Mark Crusaders, who were pepping their poor teacher with questions about gross, icky spiders. Apple Bloom had a look on her face that Dinky knew meant trouble. So she decided to stay out of whatever it was the three of them were planning. Not that they'd ask her to join in anyways. Trotting out the door, Dinky didn't have to look hard to see whatever it was that Diamond Tiara had planned. Not with her standing in the center of a small crowd of schoolfuls. "Oh, wow, they're so cute," came a cry from the crowd. "There's something special about this one," squealed the unmissable lisp of Peppermint Twist as she rose up above the others crowded around her and lifted something high into the air with her forehooves, something fuzzy and adorable, and meowing. Dinky didn't remember running into the crowd or ducking under, between, and around her peers, but somehow, a heartbeat later, there she was at the center of it all, leaning into a little red wagon and staring down at a baker's dozen of snuggly wuggly kittens, all in a pile on top of the quilt that lined the wagon's bottom. "Oh my gosh, Diamond, where did you get all these kittens?" asked Dinky, trying to speak over the excited noises of the foals around her. "Gather round, children," crowed Diamond Tiara as she stood at the head of her wagon, "and I'll sing you a tale of the fur balls for sale." And as she spoke these words, a hum began to start in and among the crowd, a hop here and a smile there, a stomping of hooves and swishing of tails, a tune, a merry little thing with bells and chimes, filled the festive air around Ponyville Elementary School. Diamond Tiara sang about a night back in early fall where a roving Castanova caught the eye of Diva, the rich family cat. She sang about how her father tried to chase the tomcat away, but to no avail. She continued and sparked a fair bit of blushing and giggling from the young ponies gathered around as she sang about their noisy romance on top of the gate arch. That was the entryway to the rich family plantation. Finally, when she got to the part where her red-faced father was spraying the two cats ineffectually with a garden hose while shouting expletives, the song crumbled around them into fits and pockets of childish laughter. Diamond Tiara wiped her face and caught her breath before finishing her tale. "Anyway, Diva had her kittens about a month ago, and Daddy said I should sell them all before we pick up Diva from Dr. Spade's tonight. I get to keep the money," she said with sparkling eyes, "so who wants to buy a kitten?" A chorus of me's and I do's went up around Dinky Doo, who couldn't take her eyes off the kittens, peeping and meowing as kittens do at all the excitement around them. Several of them were scooped up, others stood up on their shaky paws and explored the corners of the quilted wagon home. Dinky reached a hoof in, eager to pet one of the purring preciouses, when something large landed with a thud on the other side of the wagon, sending up a wave of snow out over the kittens and the surrounding foals. "Nan!" came a deep, adamant cry from the big something as black-toned paws began pulling kittens out of the hooves. "No buying, no touching," it said resolutely. Scooting back from the wagon full of protesting, snow-covered kittens along with her peers, Dinky got a good look at the biggest griffin she had ever seen. It was probably the third or fourth griffin she had ever seen, but still, this one was the biggest. She had bright white feathers on her head and chest, and blue-gray fur and feathers otherwise. Her beak and claws were black as coal, and her red eyes matched the uncharacteristically jaunty red scarf around her thin neck. "Geez, Roach, easy on the merchandise," protested Diamond Tiara as she dusted the kitten wagon free of snow. "Every pony, this is my new governess, Roach. She comes from the Griffin Kingdoms." Roach eyed the timid gathering before her and gave them the slightest possible nod. She cleared her throat, opening her beak to speak, when a cry went out. "Whoa, a griffin!" excitedly exclaimed a scratchy voice from far behind Dinky and the cowed crowd she stood in. Seconds later, a burnt orange filly, only slightly smaller than Dinky was, buzzed her wings frantically as she leapfrogged over the gathering and into the arms of a very confused griffin. Scootaloo stood up, her hind legs balancing precariously in the griffin's open palms, and her forelegs smooshed up on the griffin's cheeks, turning the creature's head every which way, eagerly expecting every inch. "Griffins are so cool," Scootaloo said, clambering over the top of Roach's head. "How do you get your feathers on top to stick up like this? They look like a mane." "Oh wow, look at your wings! They're so big, can I touch them?" The griffin grumbled and muttered as she craned her arms and neck, desperately trying to pull the parasitic Pegasus off of her. "Nyeh! Who said you may touch Roach, Augustine Z?" Finally, pulling Scootaloo from her back at the loss of a hoof full of feathers, the griffin named Roach tossed the Pegasus away with a flick of her wrist, the way a pony might try to shoo a fly. Dinky watched as Scootaloo flew through the air, bobbing along her thrown trajectory with menagerie buzzing of her wings. She landed head first into a small snowbank beside her two friends, Applebloom and Sweetie Belle. "Well, if it isn't the blank flank Crusaders," mocked Diamond Tiara, commanding the attention of the gathered foals once more. "Here to buy a kitten?" "Nah," said Applebloom, pulling her friend out of the snowbank by her tail. "We got a whole mess of 'em at Swayapple Acres. Mousers for the barn, keep the rodents out of our stores, that sort of thing." "None for me, thanks," said Sweetie Belle as she walked around the crowd to check out the kittens. "They're cute as the dickens, but Dad's allergic, and Rarity already has Opal." Scootaloo, now standing once again, wobbled to and fro as little stars danced before her eyes. "I like turtles," she said insightfully. "Right," dismissed Diamond Tiara with a roll of her eyes. Dinky watched Sweetie Belle pick up kitten after kitten with her magic. The littlest unicorn in the crowd felt an uncontrollable jealousy swell up inside her chest at the easy and casual nature with which the taller, prettier unicorn used her magic. "She's probably getting private lessons from Princess Twilight," she thought with a frown. "I bet if I had private lessons, I'd be—" Sweetie Belle gasped and lifted a single struggling kitten into the air with her magic, and Dinky shook her head clear her envious thoughts. She could see right away there was something special about this kitten. Protested the smallest kitten of the litter, unhappy to be away from the warmth of the pile of its siblings floating into the cold air. What's wrong with her paws? Asked the filly behind Dinky. Indeed, something was wrong with the kitten's paws. Her forepaws were way too short, and they bent at wrong angles, like she was expecting a hug. Are they broken? Asked Dinky, her heart pouring out for the little thing. This was the one. This was the kitten she wanted the most. Clinically, Sweetie Belle rotated the kitten in her magical grasp. No, this kitten has radial agenesis. Every pony within earshot, and the griffin, stood stone still, staring at Sweetie Belle until she lowered the kitten and looked up at a sea of questioning faces. What? We had a field trip to the vet last week, remember? Dr. Spades and Dr. Goodall gave us a joint lecture on congenital diseases, no? Silent blinking was her only answer. Don't you have anyone else to annoy with that big stupid brain of yours? Demanded Diamond Tiara. The eastern clock tower, which sat in the otherwise empty field between the school and the town proper, began ringing out its quarter-till warning. And Apple Bloom let out a whistle of her own. Come on, Sweetie Belle, she said as she and Scootaloo walked by the gathering, giving the griffin a wide berth. We gotta get to the train station if we're gonna get to the Crystal Empire before sundown. Yeah, exclaimed Scootaloo, still walking funny. We're gonna catch a turtle. Tundrantula, corrected Sweetie Belle as she trotted over to Scootaloo's other side to help prop her up. It's a big spider that lives in the frozen north. Oh, that sounds nice. Why are we doing this thing we're doing again? Dinky heard the Pegasus ask the other two Cutie Mark Crusaders as the trio walked out of earshot. How much are the kitteneth? Asked Peppermint Twist, who dared to approach the wagon and its griffin guardian. Diamond Tiara spun in place from where she was watching the trio of blank flanks trot off with a furrowed brow. Come again? She asked. How much do you want for them? Peppermint asked carefully as her tail twitching. Dinky knew that the tail twitch was something the poor pony did subconsciously when she was feeling self-conscious about her lisp. That's why some of the meaner kids called her Twitchy Twits. The kittens are 35 bits each. Dinky's heart sank like a rock in her gut. 35 bits was an impossible amount of money. The muttering of the crowd matched her own grim thoughts on the subject. 35 bits? Asked some pony, probably Lisa Dewlatch by the nasally intonations. That's right, said Diamond Tiara with a nod. For a kitten? Asked Fry. Does it do anything cool? They do kitten things. Those are cool, she insisted. Do the kitteneth come with food or anything? Asked Twist. No, the 35 bits just gets you the kitten. We've got 35 bits, said Snips and Snails in chorus, standing over a pile of bits, old gum, and old marbles. Can we split one? Asked Snails, blinking his eyes. Diamond Tiara winced at the question. You mean, can you share one? Oh, sharing sounds way better. Yeah, we could do that, asked Snips excitedly. Sure, Diamond Tiara said flatly, pulling a random kitten out of the wagon and hoofing it over in exchange for the shared treasures of the Dundering duo. Knock yourselves out. The two boys ran off down the road towards town, laughing all the way. Their kitten, a tan and white little thing with a rather permanent-looking frown, bounced in the air between them, suspended in a motley aura that shared the two colors of their unicorn magic. Any pony else want a kitten? Diamond Tiara asked as she began strapping herself into her wagon. Would you take less than 35 bits for a kitten? Prices are non-negotiable, the magenta little mare said matter-of-factly. What about the little broken one? Asked Dinky as loudly as she dared. Diamond Tiara tossed a look over her shoulder at Dinky, then at the runt, and shrugged. The little one's 25. Last call before I bring these guys into town. Any takers? No? Okay then, I'm bringing the kittens to the market. Be sure to tell your friends about Diamond Tiara's delightful kitten sale, and do hurry, she said with an annoying upturn of her voice, because supplies are limited. Come on, Roach. As Diamond Tiara began her walk into town, Roach the Griffin shot up into the sky and flapped in lazily circles around her charge, pulling the wagon. Dinky thought that Roach looked like a buzzard flying high in the desert, except for the whole buzzards aren't griffins thing. And buzzards don't wear jaunty red scarves. I'm gonna ask my older sister. Huh? Asked Dinky, turning to face Peppermint Twist. Peppermint Twist's tail twitched, and she frowned. I'm gonna talk to my older relative about buying a kitten. Oh, blimey, that's a great idea, Twist, said Pipsqueak, who Dinky thought was the only pony in class shorter and more easily overlooked than she was. I'll bet me Mom will get me a kitten. A round of reassuring yeahs, and other such positive sound bites filled the air, and the tiny stampede of foals ran off towards their various homes and relatives back in town to the west. And in the midst of all of them, galloping for all she was worth, was Dinky Doo. 25 bits, she thought to herself, wearing the widest grin. Mama might say yes to 25 bits.